Hi guys, it's Lewis here from D6 Evolution, and we're going to talk about Thousand Suns. If you haven't watched us before, we're a YouTube channel that focuses on the competitive element of the game. We do great tactics videos, reviews of the new books that we get early, and we look at combos and how to be a better 40k player. So check out some of our content. But for today, we're focusing on the new Psychic Awakening book, and that is Ritual of the Damned. Now we're going to do a couple of videos on this because there's a lot in this book. There's a Dark Angels book. There's a Dark Angels part of the book, sorry. There's a Grey Knights part, and there's a Thousand Suns. Obviously, being the Chaos player, I'm going to follow the Thousand Suns element, and I can tell you I am excited. So let's jump straight into it. I'm just going to precursor by saying that I don't actually think Thousand Suns needed a buff. They're certainly prevalent in a lot of Chaos builds, particularly soup-orientated builds. The Smite Spam that comes out of the Psychers that they have, the Demon Prince and the Sorcerers and that, is really integral, and the targeted smites are fantastic for getting characters. So they found their way into a lot of builds. I've certainly been running either a Battalion or Supreme Command for at least the last year or so. The Dark Matter Crystal on those angles has been strong and won me a lot of games, and certainly the Demon Princes are fantastic. So I was a little bit miffed when I saw the chapter approved book come out that raised some of the points. I was thinking, to be fair, that's probably okay. But little did I know that right around the corner was going to be some big buffs for them. So I'm not too upset about the price increases anymore. And I'm certainly looking at this new book and thinking, yeah, they've definitely got a place on my list to continue perhaps for most of this year as well. So just to start, a little bit of context on the book, then I'm going to run through some of the new cults that have been released, talk you through some of the ones that I find a bit more exciting, and then we're going to hit the strats. There isn't a lot of content for it, to be honest. There's 9 cults, and that sounds like a lot, but there's just a relic, a warlock trait, and a psychic power for each cult. And you only have access to that cult if you have a detachment which is entirely made of that cult. So great, actually, if you're running a pure Thousand Suns army, you've got 3 detachments, you could pick one of each cult and run 3 different cults and get all of the goodies. But for most people who are going to be souping Thousand Suns, because that still is one of the most competitive ways to play it, I think, you're going to be choosing one, and then your choices really do get narrow. So you're kind of picking your favorite psychic power or trait, and you're going to choose that cult, and then you get the other 2, the relic power and the warlord trait, or the relic power and the other psychic power, to augment the choice, but really you're going to be picking that cult for that one choice. So I'll go through it now. Now, first of all, the psychic power element is worth noting that the psychic power element is in addition. So basically what happens is you pick a detachment, you say that this detachment will be the Cult of Magic, and then every psyker in that detachment will gain the Cult of Magic psychic power in addition to all of their regular powers, which is phenomenal. I'm not sure if that was a deliberate thing or if it was just the easiest way to write it, but the fact that every single one of your psychic powers knows, every one of your sorcerers, knows an additional psychic power, that in itself has a lot of play. And then when the psychic powers are really good, and a lot of the cults you're going to be picking maybe predominantly because of the psychic power, I think that's just a humongous buff. So that's one thing that really strikes me. The other thing, just to make a note, I've had this question asked me a couple of times by people who've seen the previews on Warhammer Community, and I'm waiting obviously till today to release the information on it, but obviously the psychic power, the cults are only affect, are excluded from affecting named characters, Zangors, and Cultists. So you will not be getting these cult powers on Magnus or on Araman. Or on the Zangors, which I thought was a bit odd because there is a few in there that kind of would work way better on Zangors. But hey, that means your Zangor Enlightened isn't getting these extra powers. But nonetheless, it's a good book anyway. So jumping straight into the cults, I'm going to kind of just brush quickly past the ones that are sort of least interesting, make a couple of notes, and then I'll spend a little bit more time on some combos for the ones I found most interesting. So we've got Coulter Prophecy to start with, and it was the first read of the book, and straight away got me really excited. The only problem with it is that it's limited purely to Coulter Prophecy units. Basically what it means is you roll a dice, you set that dice aside, and then that dice you can use to replace a hit roll, a wound roll, psychic power, etc. So it's a nice little thing, great for charge rolls, great in conjunction with Gaze of Fate, but as I said, the problem is that you have to choose, you can only use it on a roll made for a Coulter Prophecy unit, because in my head I was thinking, oh, Red Butchers are amazing now. They struggle with the charges, but you could do this with Gaze of Fate. You're like really almost guaranteeing that charge. So it's okay, but you're not going to pick this cult over that, and I think you're going to see this a lot. There'll be ones in there you think, oh, it's kind of nice, but I'm not going to choose that specific cult just for that kind of nice power. I'm going to choose a specific cult for the cult that has the really strong power, or the ones that I won't really suit my build. So yeah, there's that. They've got the Warlord trait is basically gives you a free 6-inch move from your Warlord when he gets charged by Overwatch, which if it was on any unit, that would be phenomenal. Your Warlord's probably the least likely to be charged, so it's not going to come up that often. And again, you're not going to choose the cult for a Warlord trait that doesn't come up that often. I would just make a note here that the Warlord traits, obviously you choose them as your main Warlord trait for free. They do have a stratagem that you pay a CP to give you a Warlord trait, similar to Field Commander or We Are Alfarius, which is obviously a new one. So yeah, we're kind of seeing that a lot now. So you can just pay 1 CP and get these Warlord traits in addition. So that does mean to me it's such an investment, but still, it's still an investment. Yeah, and then lastly, the Etheric Blazer. This is strong, and this is possibly why you would choose this cult. So the side power is okay. The Relic is the Warlord Trait is situational, but the Relic is really strong. And that is when a unit within 6 inches of a friendly model with this Relic is choosing to fight or shoot, you can re-roll 1 hit, 1 wound roll, or 1 damage roll. It's basically Marty Artisan. We're seeing that a lot now. But what really kind of got me, and I'm fairly confident this will get FAQ'd, although it may not be, and it may be intended this way, is just as any friendly unit is within 6 inches. So you basically can give a 6-inch Master Artisan buff to any unit in the Chaos library, which is fantastic. I mean, straight away my mind was like, Renegade Guard, Laser Rapier Destroyers, for example, they're great, but no rerolls. So that's really strong. Chaos Knights, for example, don't get any rerolls. And to be honest, the Chaos Knight builds are seeing a lot of builds that involve Thousand Suns. So you can choose a Chaos Knight build and then pay for this Thousand Suns, and then you're not having to pay the 2 CP every time for 1 knight to reroll hits, all hits. You can you could choose a hit and wound or damage roll from multiple knights. Very good in armature builds, for example. So yeah, anyway, there's just a bit of play there. It's nice that it's not unit locked. I tell you what, if the power wasn't unit locked and would let you use that reroll or that rolled dice for anything, then this would definitely be probably a must-have. But yeah, it's nice overall. It's nice to see that they're trying new interesting setup and mechanics in the game. I really like the idea of rolling a dice and setting it aside. I know they bring a lot of stuff over from Age of Sigmar, and it's just making the game a bit more flavoursome. It's a bit more interesting. It's not just, I reroll hits, I reroll wounds. It's, I have these interesting mechanics. I really like the Emperor's Children one, which is, turn 1 dice to roll to a 6, for example. That kind of thing really interests me. So I'm very glad to see that. So next up, we've got Cult of Time. They previewed this. You've got a psychic power that can bring models back. You've got a Warlord trait, which when you cast on a 9+, you manifest an additional power. And you've got a relic, which is a fantastic relic, to be honest. It's called the Hourglass of Man. And basically what it means is that when it's a bit like Shard of Benares, I think it is, when your model dies at the end of the phase, it comes back. If it's got this relic, it comes back with D3 models points remaining. So this is overall, I'd say, kind of like the mid-upper tier of the cults. It's a good solid one. I could definitely see why you pick it. You get a lot of mileage out of the D3 models back on the psychic power. Bear in mind, everyone has access to that psychic power, so you're always going to be able to cast it. Still situational because models have to have died from the unit, but the unit has to have not died. Great on things like Scarab Occult Terminators, get a lot of mileage out of that. And just all round, there's a few interesting things you can make play of that. That Hourglass is very strong. Just remember that happens at the end of the phase. So we kind of went through all this with like the Imperium, and the Chaos Knights when they die and then they come back up. They come back up at the end of the phase. So your Smash Captain can't fight again to kill them again, for example. So it's really strong, that, and particularly on Thousand Suns, who are typically, that's going to go on a Demon Prince or a Sorcerer, Terminator Sorcerer, for example. And once they die, they get back up again. If that happened in your opponent's turn, in your turn, you can move them away, their characters, so they're covered. by the character rule again. So yeah, just great, and for keeping your your spell slingers alive for one more turn of smites or whatever. It's a solid relic, and I could definitely see why you'd be taking that. So the next one we've gone on to is Cult of Mutation. Honestly, not so excited about this one, to be honest. There's a pretty cool power. Again, it's made much better by the fact that anyone has access to it. And basically, it's warp charge 6. You pick a terrain feature, which is within 18. Just remember, guys, they tell you all the ranges of the powers in this book. So when you get it, obviously, that's all the ranges. If you're playing a pure Thousand Suns detachment, don't forget you get 6-inch range on all your psychic powers. So if it says 18, it'll be 24 inches after you apply that buff. So yeah, you pick a terrain feature, and until the start of your next psychic phase, you pick a unit next to a terrain feature, and for the start of the next psychic phase, you half that unit's move characteristic, and you reduce their advance and charge rolls by 1. So yeah, really good. I mean, we're seeing a lot of things like the Nova Elves. It's a fairly standard tournament setup these days, and so most people tend to play heavily around that. And if you can really, and particularly with infantry units, think about the Chaos Possessed Bomb and the Obliterators play a lot around that. I know a lot of Blood Angels will play around that with their Smash Captains and their full-on charges and things like that. And the ability to really just shut down the movement off that is strong, and I can totally see why you take it. I'm really interested. I think it needs an FAQ just to confirm how it works with Doombolt. I would just presume you half and then half again. But obviously everyone can read that in their own ways depending on which your bias sits. So if you had a 12-inch move on a Smash Captain, for example, that goes to 6 and then goes to 3, that Smash Captain's going nowhere, and then he's -1 to charge. It's pretty solid. So great power, that one. I really do like that, and I could see why you take it, but considering other stuff that there is here, it isn't brilliant. And the rest of this book is not, the rest of this cult, sorry, is not so fantastic. The Warlord trait is unmodified rolls of 6, inflict 1 mortal wound. I mean, your Demon Prince with Diabolic Strength is going to get a few attacks off. He might get 1 or 2 mortal wounds out of that. You're not taking it for that, and you probably wouldn't pay the CP for the upgrade, considering how many good Warlord traits there are anyway. I can't see you choosing that one. And similarly, the Relic is add 1 to the strength, toughness, and attacks of the model, but it's linked purely it's limited purely to sorcerers. So again, I'm not going to take a sorcerer and try and buff him up. It's I'd take a Demon Prince for that. So I can't see why you take anything else in this cult, and therefore I can't really see why you take the psychic power. But it is interesting, it is fun. Okay, so getting into the more interesting stuff now. So the Cult of Scheming. So this one, the psychic power is you choose a Cult of Scheming unit within 24 inches, and they can shoot and charge even if they fell back. Is okay. You get Grand Schemer. Now this is actually really good. I can see this working in a few builds. I would definitely see this as perhaps one you would take if you were playing pure Thousand Suns and you're running something like a double or triple battalion, and one of the battalions was this, because it really makes them very strong. And that is you gain the Disciples of Tzeentch ability, which is essentially OBSEC, and if you have a Disciples of Tzeentch ability, you count as double. So if you have a 5-man Rubik's squad, they will count as 10 for the purpose of holding objectives. So that's really strong in itself. It's an aura around the Warlord. It's a very short aura. It's only 3 inches, which is a little bit tight. I was thinking some janky stuff with this. If you took some Hellblades, for example, and you deep striked or dark matter crystalled a Warlord up, those Hellblades would then have OBSEC essentially. It's a nice way to kind of just steal an objective of perhaps a Thunderfire cannon that's holding it at the backfield that's not going to hold that objective. You don't need to make a charge. You're guaranteed to take it. Yeah, it's the best I can think of with that. So if you guys come up with anything more interesting, do let me know. But nonetheless, even just as angle unit, dark matter crystalling up, and then the Warlord dropping in with this, all of a sudden all those angles count as double. They're going to just take all the objectives. So there is some play there. And then lastly, and this is really interesting, again, you can kind of choose if you're going to do it. So basically it's a relic, and what happens is once per battle, you can choose a stratagem, and that stratagem is free. But it's not linked in this case to specifically Cult of Scheming or even Thousand Suns units. So you look at the most expensive stratagems you have in your book, and you're looking at things like your red butchers fighting again, and then fighting a third time. Any of the fight against stratagems are usually 3 CP. So the fact that you can just do that for free, if you can build the points in your list to get the CP to do it once, and you can do it free a second time, that's a huge boost to your power. Normally, you're looking at that going, I can't find 6 or 9 CP to make this work on multiple turns, but this lets you do it. So it's really exciting. Great one to pull out last minute when your opponent thinks you're out of CP, and they go to do something, and then you're like, no, I've got my fullback and shoot charge or whatever it is, stratagem still in the bag, and I'm going to do it for free. So a nice little catch there. So again, it's quite good. But we're 15 minutes into the video now, and you can pretty much just forget all of that because the one that everyone is going to take, I'm sure, because it certainly has the most power around, fits mostly into all of the builds that people are playing currently, and it's just a straight up buff to everything that everyone was already doing with their Thousand Suns detachment, is the Cult of Magic. 100% my favorite one out of the book. There's only one other that I could even contemplate taking over this. So the reason for that is that, first of all 3 aspects of this cult, the psychic power, the Warlord Trait, and the Relic, are amazing, and I would take them all. I would take this cult just for each one of those individually. So enough hype. The psychic power, and again, please remember, psychic power is available to everyone. Everyone just knows this within the cult and has access to it. So everyone has this power, and it's a damage power. So straight away, it's obviously good. Even if it was just an extra D3 smite, it'd be worth taking. But it's better than that. It's warp charge 6, so it's a low cast, and particularly if you're getting pluses to cast, which you have loads of ways of doing. The closest enemy unit within 9. Remember your Thousand Suns, so that's 15 inches. So it's a little bit short range, but it's doable. And visible to this psyker suffers D3 mortal wounds, and each other unit within 3 inches of that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. And then it specifically notes here, and it's very interesting, it says here, the Brotherhood of Sorcery, which is the Thousand Suns ability that increases the range, that only works on the first element. It doesn't work on the second, which is kind of understood, but it's good that they noted it. So essentially, it's Infernal Gateway. I love Infernal Gateway. I think it's a little bit overcosted on the warp charge, but then you're playing Thousand Suns, so you normally have lots of ways of charging it. And I can tell you, it's an absolute game changer. You fly in there and you've got anything screening, a big unit particularly. So I think about Tau, for example. I love using this against Tau. Dark Matter Crystal, your sorcerer up turn 1, and you do Infernal Gateway. Now, Infernal Gateway, the problem for Thousand Suns originally was that it's actually a demon of Tzeentch power, so your demon princes get it, which is good, but you can always pay a CP under the Thousand Suns Codex with their stratagem to drop a power and take that. So very often I would take some middling power, probably wouldn't use it, drop it straight away turn 1, take Infernal Gateway, and then do that with the Dark Matter Crystal. It's a lovely little combo. Or Thousand Suns, your Demon Prince, can just fly up and warp time himself, or even just charge and even just advance, and usually can make the range to do it. And I'll tell you what, when you hit a drone unit that is standing at the front of it, it is very often that they'll weave the drone units together. It's good solid play, and most players, they have a kind of mindset they get into rut. They always do the same thing, so they weave their their 2 drone units in amongst all of their models, so that they're kind of within 3 inches of all of their suits. So whichever suit you're going to shoot, you've got to hit multiple drone units before the suit can take the damage. But you just, as Thousand Suns, you just flip that right on its head, and you shoot the drone unit with your Infernal Gateway, so you do D3 mortal wounds to the drone unit. And then, because they're within 3 inches of all of those models, all the characters, all that can't normally be shot, all of the battle suits, it obviously then explodes and does mortal wounds to those. Now, I should have checked actually, but I'm pretty certain it's on a 4+. It does mortal wounds to each unit within 3. So that in itself, that was a great power. And the interesting thing about that Infernal Gateway power is, I think if you cast it on, I think it's 10 or 11, I think it's 11+, it does D6 mortal wounds. So it's a fantastic power. And this Astral Blast for the Cult of Magic, the power that everybody has access to, is essentially the same thing. Okay, it only does 1 mortal wound instead of D3 to the other units, but it's not on a 4+. It just automatically happens to all those units. But the thing is, you can do it with both. So you can Dark Matter Crystal, or Warp Time, or even just Deep Strike on turn 2, however you want to go about it. You get your Sorcerer up, and he casts Infernal Gateway, and he casts Astral Blast, and then you're doing 2d3 mortal wounds to that unit, and d3 plus 1 to all the units within 3. It's a devastating combo just to really rip through that unit, or rip through their army. If they're castling, it just absolutely crushes them. Just so many more wounds turn 1. You're probably not going to kill anything instantly off the back of that, but it's going to be enough to really just rip wounds off everything. So that's pretty strong. But then you marry that up with the Warlord trait, and this is where things get bonkers. So the Warlord trait, devastating sorcery, and it is absolutely devastating. It's very simple. I absolutely love it. It's when your Warlord manifests a psychic power that inflicts 1 or more mortal wounds on the enemy unit. Increase the mortal wounds inflicted on that unit by 1. So if it did D3, it would be D3 plus 1. Now, I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, and feel free to put it in the comments, but I'm definitely reading that as any mortal wounds created by the sorcerer, and by the fact that this is directly below the power, which does multiple wounds to every unit around it. I read that as they also get that power. So if we look at Astral Blast, if we did D3 mortal wounds to the first unit that we targeted, that would be D3 plus 1. And then if we do 1 mortal wound to every unit within 3 inches of that unit, it would be actually 2 mortal wounds to every unit within 3 inches of that unit. And then if we followed that up by doing Infernal Gateway, it would do D3 mortal wounds to the first unit plus 1, and then D3 plus 1 to every unit within 3 inches on a 4+. So rolling relatively well on those 4+s to cast, you can be popping minimum of 4, maximum of 7 wounds to every model within 3 inches of that screen, that cultist unit, that drone unit, that possessed bomb, with all its characters, whatever it is. That is brutal. I cannot see a reason why, if you're taking Thousand Suns, you aren't slotting that in. It's no extra investment. It's a huge number of powers, and it's just a fantastic combo. If you really want to kind of notch that up a gear, if you do Kabbalistic focus, then you obviously get +2 to your cast, so you're more likely to get that D6 off on the Infernal Gateway. And you know what? You're a Tzeentch character. You can pay a CP to do 1 more cast, so you can actually cast 3 powers. You make that last cast another smite, and then your smite's doing D3 plus 1. It's just fantastic. You are just going to be flying in out mortal wounds. You could do that off a 100-point sorcerer model. I'd probably do it I'd probably take a Terminator sorcerer. That's 122 points. I take Dark Matter Crystal on someone else. If there's an opportunity to do it turn 1 because I get T1 and they're proper bundled up in a little castle, then boom, Dark Matter Crystal him up. He casts Infernal Gateway. He casts, with +2 or +3 to cast. He casts Astral Blast, and he casts Smite. And every time he's more wins, more wins, more wins, more wins. This is insane. And if he dies, well, hell, he's a suicide unit. He's done his job. And the other good thing about that turn 2, maybe you don't Dark Matter Crystal. Maybe you just Deep Strike him. You look at how they're set up, and you think, I'm not gonna be able to find my way in there with a Deep Strike T1. I'll just hold that. Maybe bring it turn 2. But don't forget, this is the most important thing. That is on every one of your sorcerers. So if you took a battalion unit, for example, and you had 3 units of rubrics and 3, say Araman and 2 units of Demon Prince and a Terminator Sorcerer, for example. Other than Araman, because obviously he doesn't get the Cult Wing, all of those units, including the rubrics, have access to this power. So every single buddy has this power in their repertoire. So you throw your Terminator Sorcerer up to turn 1, and he Dark Matter Crystals and does all these powers. And then turn 2, you Deep Strike your next Terminator Sorcerer, and he does it. And then your rubric Marines come up and do it, and it's just phenomenal. It's super exciting. And then lastly, as if that wasn't enough, the Warlord Traits. That's the Warlord trait, which gives the extra mortal wounds. The Relic is very simply add 1 to your psychic tests. So why not? That Dark Matter Crystal doesn't need to go on the guy who's getting shot forwards. So the guy who's getting shot forwards, that Terminator Sorcerer, for example, he can just take this Relic so that he gets +1 to cast from Familiar, +1 to cast from this Relic. If you can manage it, which is quite easy to do, if you manage it with him being within 6 inches of 2 other psychics, you get another 2 to cast from that Kabbalistic, which means you're getting +4 to cast. That means that when you're doing your Infernal Gateway, it's I think it's on be on a 8, I think it is, or 7 or 8 to cast, is doing the D6 mortal wound version. And then obviously he's got the Warlord trait, which means it's D6 plus 1 mortal wounds. It's just phenomenal. And lastly, even if he didn't have that psychic power, even if he didn't have that Warlord trait, the Relic of add 1 to your total is pretty much why people take Thousand Suns originally anyway. They would take it because Ahriman gets +1 to cast, and then you take the Warlord trait, which is in the book, to give you +1 to cast. People were taking Thousand Suns just for that. And now for the Relic, for another 1 CP, you can get another Sorcerer or another Demon Prince with +1 to cast, or you can stack that with your High Magistrate Warlord, who's getting +1 to cast, so now he gets +2 to cast. Brilliant. So anyway, Cult of Magic, that's pretty much the only thing you need to know about this book. All right, so we're going to go through them now. So back to some more mundane stuff, and when you think about it in context of what I've just said, these kind of fall by the wayside. So you've got the Psychic Delve. So basically you get to reroll wounds of 1 against a particular unit that you choose, but frustratingly it's only linked to Cult of Knowledge units that can take advantage of that, so not too exciting. There's a Warlord trait which lets you reroll dice rolls of 1. Rerolling dice rolls of 1 has really good maths behind it, so that is actually very strong. But again, is it that much stronger than just +1 to cast? No. Would you take this for anything else? Probably not. The Relic is a poopy little pistol that you're never going to use. So on to the next one. Cult of Change, again, not absolutely fantastic. There's a psychic power, which again is accessible to everyone, that reduces the leadership and attacks characteristic of 1. That's, in a lot of builds, that is actually quite interesting. I was used to take a Slanesh Warlords quite frequently just to have access to the Slanesh trait that would -1 attack, and then perhaps a Warlord trait that gives another -1 attack. So that can actually be really brutal in some lists, and the fact that this sort of psychic power is great. The fact that as a leadership debuff, there's lots of stuff that's looking at leadership debuffs these days, so there's just no way of getting it in there, so it's okay. Warlord traits reroll charge rolls, and you can fall back. Who cares? Don't know who you would want to be doing that with, because your psychic power is casting combat anyway, so it's irrelevant. And then lastly, and this was a little bit interesting, you roll every time you roll, so it's once per turn, it's the Relic. Once per turn, when you take a psychic test for the model holding the Relic, if you roll a 1, you can make it a 6. And similarly, if your opponent rolls a 6, you can make it a 1. Situational at best, they have to be within 18 inches of you. It's nice that they have that little ability to affect your opponent as well. Kind of interesting, but you just CP reroll it anyway. So yeah, not really that exciting. Okay, and we are on to the last section now. So we're on to Cult of Duplicity. If I wasn't going to take Cult of Magic, or if it didn't exist, I could really see value in Cult of Duplicity, and I do have a little crazy combo, one of my little trademark combos for this. So, Cult of Duplicity is psychic power, is Sorceress Facade, and this is why I'm quite interested in this. For anyone that kind of listens to the way I speak about things, I do rate movement very highly. The ability to fly around the battlefield and take objectives, I think, is quite important. That's why I played Thousand Suns with the Dark Matter Crystal in the first instance, and essentially this is that again. So what it is warp charge of 7, and you pick a friendly Cult of Duplicity unit within 6 of the Psyker, remove that unit from the battlefield, then set it up anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches for models. So first couple of things to note, it's the jump, if you know the jump from the orcs. It can happen first turn because it's a psychic power and the unit starts on the table. It is not limited to infantry, which is really exciting. So it's any Cult of Duplicity model, and I'll come on to that in a second. And then the downside is the unit counts as having moved, which is kind of a bit sucky, but I can understand why. So just be careful of that on heavy weapons and things like that. So yeah, uses for this. Well, where do I start? First of all, the fact that it can happen turn 1 means you just consider it to be another Dark Matter Crystal, which means you consider it to be another Dark Matter Crystal. So turn 1, you can Dark Matter Crystal your Zangors, 30-man unit Zangors, or maybe 25. That's probably normally what you need. And then you can, cast this on a second unit of 25 Zangors. So turn 1, you're getting charged by 50 Zangors or 60 Zangors. So, that's pretty good. One of those unit fighting again. I like that a lot. I really like the fact that it's not infantry. So straight away I was starting to think like, oh, what about like a Leviathan? Just turn 1, Dark Matter Crystalling into your face. Using the Sorceress Facade to deep strike into your face. Perhaps take, I don't know, I don't know the points of it whether they're overcosted, but the soul burners on them, which are quite short range. He just shoots forward, bang, 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 soul burners, or just close combat weapons. And then I was thinking, you know what? I found myself using Dark Matter Crystal a lot defensively. And I would always struggle to know when to use it because there's so many good uses for it. So for example, obviously turn 1 you just deep strike Zangor. It's like, that's standard. A lot of threat, get straight on the board, pin them in their deployment zone, loads of value in that. But if you didn't need to do it to turn 1, doing it like late game, turn 4, turn 5, to get onto that point, fantastic. I used to use it a lot against things like I guess like Gene Stealer Cult. As you get later in the game, they tend to be weaker. Their characters tend to end up getting a bit more exposed, and just to pop Araman back field and do smite onto one character to kill it, Zinch's Firestorm and Infernal Gaze on another one to kill it. These little combos, the fact you can just deep strike wherever you want and then start slinging off psychic powers and picking out characters in the backfield. You can pick up 2 free kills in ITC on turn 4 quite easily by doing something like that. So that was really strong. And there's loads of gotcha movements with it as well. So, I had games where I've been charged, wrapped up in combat, so I haven't been able to shoot the unit and I haven't been able to shoot the characters behind the unit, and he's wrapped a cultist unit or a Zangor unit or whatever it is, and I go, okay, well, Dark Matter Crystal. I pick up that unit, it gets picked up out of combat, and I deep strike it somewhere else. It tries to charge, it doesn't even matter. The point is it's out of combat. So you thought you were safe because you're wrapped, and you're not. So you think you're a clever Night Lords player, and you're meaning I can't fall back, or you've got the mirror, or you're a snare captain, and it's like, oh, I'm not falling back. I'm just removing myself from the battlefield. So that is so strong. It really is a gotcha. And if you're a really good player should know it, but I play quite a lot of good players who forget about it. So, we're all humans at the end of the day. So I'm just talking about Dark Matter Crystal, but Sorceress Facade is exactly the same power. And bear in mind, the problem with Dark Matter Crystal was it was 1 use per game. Sorceress Facade is a psychic power that every one of your psychic units has access to, which includes your Rubric Marines. If you are not casting that power every single turn, you are not playing this cult right. Because if you think about it, even your backfield Rubric Marine squad that's just sat on the objective right at the back of the board, or was perhaps screening turn 3, up to turn 3, providing some deep strike screen, and now is in the middle of nowhere, they can cast it on themselves because as long as they have aspiring sorcerers, which I think you're always going to splash for in these kind of cults. He can just cast it on himself, and he can fly himself anywhere on the battlefield. So you're constantly moving, picking up units, putting them in the middle of nowhere. You're picking up a Leviathan, chucking it forwards. Your sorcerers are going, oh, do you know what? And this is what's incredible about it. You've got a constant deep strike threat from everything in your army, if you're playing pure cults, on anywhere on the board. And what that's going to mean is that your opponent turn 5 has to still be thinking about deep strike zoning, because if he leaves that character out, or if he doesn't quite cover him, your little 32 mil base sorcerer is just going to slap himself over there and smite and cast whatever powers he needs to cast. It's phenomenal. The play to come out of this is absolutely incredible. Thinking about other uses for it, there's like the Predator, the Infernal Relic Predator, I can't remember, it's Hellforge Predator from the Forces of Chaos book. I think it's got a 12 or 18 inch 2d6 flamer on it, so that can just deep strike forwards, and that can be flaming stuff. I was thinking whether there's value in perhaps Vindicators, because the problem is they're really short range, so they could just be zapped forwards to get into range. I love the idea of someone taking and please, if you do this, please message me and tell me how it went. Taking a sorcerer with a bunch of psychic powers, a bunch of damaging powers, so Zinch's Firestorm, Smite, Infernal Gaze, whatever the combo is that you want to take, Doombolt, etc. And I want to know when you turn 1, Dark Matter Crystal him forwards, zap sniped a character, and then cast with your 3rd power in Sorceress Facade yourself to teleport yourself back. please do that. That is the most exciting things. That is like absolute sniping character, Thousand Suns, stealthy. Yeah, absolutely amazing. So please, if you do that, I want to hear it because that is super exciting. And just the fact that you can is brilliant. So I've just paused on the psychic power there. Let's just cover the others. Warlord trait, it's something you know. It's originally on the Satan, the Deceiver. Warlord trait, D3 Coulter Prophecy models at the start of the battle round can be removed and redeployed. If you're in a transport, you count as being in the transport. So you're flying all over the place. You can fully deploy on one side and then move everything across. I've covered it before when I was playing Eldar Phantasm. There's loads of great tactics out of the back of that. In fact, I'm still taking it on my Alpha Legion build at the moment to get my possessed into space and to get my obliterators around it. It's just great. And the fact that it's just a warlord trait, if you wanted to play Thousand Suns and Alpha Legion, you're picking up between 4 and 6 models and redeploying them. You can be everywhere. So that's really great. And then lastly, it's fun, it's interesting. I probably would take it if I was taking this cult, and that is at the start of the battle round. This is a relic. Roll a d6. On a 4+, you get a command point. On a 1, you give your opponent a command point. So I guess if you really wanted to, you could re-roll that. I don't know really would it be necessarily worth it, but yeah, hey, it's interesting. I probably would, but then again, maybe I'll just pay the CP to take the Helm of the Third Eye, which is when your opponent rolls a CP on a 5+, you get it. So there's choices there. So yeah, that's my second rated one, although really fun. I still think the cold magic is much more powered, overpowered really in comparison, but that is pretty exciting. So again, we're on the last one now, so not so interesting this one. The psychic power is pretty interesting. This is Cult of Manipulation. The psychic power, the unit suffers mortal wound. If manifested, select one enemy character within 18 inches. That unit suffers 1 mortal wound until the start of your next phase. When a psychic taste is taken for that unit, subtract 2 from the total. Yeah, well, it's good. Again, it's a power everyone has. And then Warlord trait, Beguiling Influence. Subtract 1 from the attacks characteristics of enemy models within 1 inch of this Warlord. That's not so great. Whilst I think about it, obviously it's subtracting 1 from the attacks characteristic. We looked in one of the previous cults, they had something similar as well. That is actually really good if you're putting builds in that you're trying to trap people in combat yourself, particularly if you're playing like a Mirror or Fiends or Fiends of Slanesh, that is, or Night Lords or Wordbearer, the Ashen Axe, because really that's great to be locked in combat with someone, and that means your army can't be shot at if they're all locked in that combat. But if your entire army is locked in combat with one unit that is Centurions, for example, Assault Centurions, and the only thing keeping them in that combat is one sorcerer with the Ashen Axe from the Wordbearers, they just need to put their attacks into him, he dies, and then they can fall back. So obviously you need to keep him alive. Well, look, reducing their attacks characteristics is a solid way of doing that. If you can reduce them down to one attack, and they can only get 2 or 3 models in, 2 or 3 models, they still got a hit wound, and then you got your saves and stuff. So you just have a much better chance of surviving. So it really is. There is a lot of value there. I'm not going to brush past it and say it's nothing. And then lastly, their relic is when you let me read this one again. So yeah, when the model of this relic is chosen to fight in the fight phase, you can select an infantry unit with a leadership characteristic of 9 or less that's within 1 inch of the model. Select one melee weapon that the enemy model is equipped with. Until the end of that phase, the model with this relic is treated as only being equipped with that weapon, and it can only make attacks against that enemy model's unit. So essentially you steal their weapon. And you cannot re-roll the hit rolls or the wound rolls. Yeah, you're not going to take that. So that rounds it off. Basically, it's Cult of Duplicity, being the deep strike everything, redeploy your army, pretty exciting movement shenanigans. You've got Cult of Magic, which is just insane mortal wounds damage and another damage power for everyone. It's just brilliant. And then you've got, I guess, Cult of Time is probably the last one that I kind of rate in the top 3, although that definitely would be number 3, where you can bring stuff back, and when you die you get the Hourglass and you come back. So that's the cults. That's the majority of the book. very lastly, we'll just touch on the stratagems. I think there's 7 stratagems. And yeah, they're honestly they're really good. They're just not that exciting, but they are solid, and you would definitely use them. So first one is Magister. Basically, just get a Warlord trait. Yeah, you can only use that once per battle, obviously. It's 1 CP. Second one, Infernal Fusillade. This is really solid, and this is what you can see why you count as moving when you come out of that psychic, using that psychic power that lets you re-deep strike. And that is a Rubric Marine unit or a Scarab Occult Terminators unit. Get to shoot until the end of that phase. Models in that unit can shoot twice with rapid fire weapons, which obviously they're equipped with. So basically, it's kind of like a really cheap endless cacophony. You have to not have moved, but if you do, you get to double fire your rapid fire weapons, which is a lot of shots, and it's really solid, and it's 1 CP. So yeah, I mean, obviously you can't do that when you come out deep strike, but you can do that if you had just appeared there at the start of the battle, which, surprise, surprise, there is a stratagem that lets you do that. They obviously previewed this one on the on the Warhammer community page, and it was the first thing in the book that I just kind of dropped it. My jaw went gah, and you realised that this was going to be some solid stuff. So for anyone that doesn't know, the Possessed Bomb is very strong at the moment. There's a lot of people that have been talking about it. Myself, Vic, have been working on it a lot, and Vic's had some fantastic success with it. He rubbed off on Manny. Manny started to play it. Go watch the video that we did before with Manny. It is a phenomenal build. I'm personally running the triple battalion version because I think the CP is super exciting with the Alpha Legion stuff. Manny's gone the full opposite direction, which is running just the Possessed Bomb, no blitz, and trying to do it on a smaller amount of CP, and then Vic kind of sits in the middle, so it's interesting to see how our different takes on the same list. But one thing that we can probably all agree on is it's really difficult to get those forward units out there. The only choice that you have is Nurglings. You put Nurglings out in front, you can seal your Possessed. They can't be shot because the Nurglings are the closest unit. So you're forced to take Nurglings. The thing is, Nurgling's great, cheap battalion is fine, but the rest of that battalion is kind of doing nothing. And to be honest, I'd much rather get another Thousand Suns battalion in, and now I can, because I can swap my Nurglings for a 20-man unit of Rubrics, or perhaps just a smaller size unit, because that's quite expensive, but nonetheless a big unit that I'm going to put forwards, because for 1 CP I can now deep strike them 9 inches, or I can start them 9 inches away when I deploy them from the enemy models or from the deployment zone. So that is, I mean, that's great anyway. Even if I wasn't playing the Possessed Bomb, that is just a way to suddenly chuck up, if you're playing pure Thousand Suns, 100% you take a 20-man unit, turn 1, boom, they just come out in your face. People don't know if you haven't played a lot against Thousand Suns, but the rubrics are really strong. They obviously Marines 3+ save. They've got a 5+ invulnerable save. You can they have a power called All Is Dust, which is if you're being attacked by it's not power, it's a data slate ability. If you're attacked by damage 1 characteristic, you count as +1 save, and that's all saves. So their invulnerable save goes from 5 up to 4 up, and their armor save goes to a 2 up. You put them in cover, their armor save is essentially 1 up. So if you're shooting them with assault cannons, heavy bolters, all your usual marine rubbish that isn't 2 damage, that's 1 damage, you've got a essentially +2 save. You put them in cover and you get additional save. So your -2 AP that most of those weapons have is completely null and void, and you're just rolling 3 ups like you would be normally, and that makes a humongous difference. So yeah, that makes them really strong. And then obviously they haven't moved, have they? Because they started the battle 9 inches away. So then that's why you use that stratagem to let them fire twice, and they have AP2 weapons. So yeah, absolutely solid. Anyway, really great for the Possessed Bomb. I will be interested to see if people make the switch. I'm sitting on the fence. It definitely is exciting me by the fact I can get that Thousand Suns battalion in there and drop the kind of Demons battalion. But then the points cost is more, so it's a hard choice. I do think overall the Nurglings probably have the survivability edge, but the Marines have the Rubrics have the damage edge, so it's a choice. Okay, so a couple other strats. You've got an interesting one. I don't know, it's a fairly situational, but when it comes up, it's going to be big. If you get charged, if one of your characters get charged, you can do the Hawk Shroud thing of rolling 2d6 and heroically intervening with any Rubric or Scarab Occult Terminator unit. That's pretty exciting. especially if you remember it, because I'm sure most people forget they have that and be like, oh yeah, I could have done that. Any way of getting extra movement is always strong. I've said that multiple times. So 2d6 movement for free. You have to end up with an instant model, but nonetheless, it's there. And then Sorceress Infusion. Now this is quite exciting, and this is the only thing in the book that affects Ahriman or Magnus, which I know people will be questioning if there's anything in there for them. And that is that when you cast a Psychic Power on a 9+, that model regains D3 mortal wounds for 1 CP. I would say that Magnus almost invariably is going to cast at least one of his powers on a on a 9+ with his +2 to cast, and he has 3 powers or whatever. So he's almost certainly going to be getting D3 mortal wounds back every turn if he wants to for 1 CP. Ahriman the same with his +1 to cast, and then bear in mind you've got all these ways of getting pluses to cast. So getting a 9+ is not that unusual. So yeah, no, it's good power, and I could see you using it. It also brings back models in the unit, so that's again quite exciting. If you powered that up with the time cult one, you can cast a psychic power to bring D3 model back. So your Scarab Cult Terminator sorcerer, aspiring sorcerer, casts that. He brings back D3 models out his unit, and then if he casts on a 9+, he can bring back another D3 models from his unit. That's pretty good. That's pretty exciting. Again, on that 20-man unit that managed to survive round 1 and then got whittled down to 5 or 6 units, to suddenly bring back 6 models would be insane. So yeah, there's some cool stuff there if you can cast a 9+. And then we've got the boring, bland, but incredibly strong 1 CP +1 invulnerable save. So that 20-man Zangor unit, that 20-man Rubric unit on a 5+ armor save, getting shot by AP1 weapons is on a 4+ armor save, pays 1, invulnerable save, pays 1 CP and is now on a 3+ invulnerable save. It is capped this to 3+, because obviously you could Weaver of Fates to get another one, but then it just gives you the choice. So one unit will perhaps Weaver and one unit will do this, and they both have +1 invulnerable save, and it's nice and strong. So boring but strong. And then very lastly, 1 CP, don't suffer more Perils of the War. So that is the entirety of Thousand Suns. My hot take on that is the Cult of Magic is going to be everywhere. I can't see why you wouldn't take it if you're taking the reason that people have been taking Thousand Sun battalions for your Smite spam and your and all your targeted powers. So it just buff those to 1,000,000. So it's absolutely amazing. The Cult of Duplicity is so exciting. I really want to see some interesting builds. If you think about it, turn 1, you can Dark Matter Crystal, you can Rubric Marine Infiltrate, and you can Psychic Power to deep strike another unit. So you could charge 60 Rubric Marines, 20 with the Dark Matter Crystal, 20 with the Risen Rubric Eye, and 20 with the Duplicity Psychic Power. You could do 2 units of 10 Zangors and 1 unit of 20 Rubric Marines. So much play there. That's really exciting. There was a build that was going around a while ago. I think I would say it was going around. I think it was just one Australian player, I think it was playing it, and he was just playing mass Rubrics when they had nothing. Well, if he had this book, his list has just got insane. The fact that he has all of those command points, which he doesn't really need anyway, but he's just got all of those units teleporting all over the battlefield, flying around. It's just, yeah, I can absolutely see that being super strong, and be able to cast it. I mean, you could just bloody re-deep strike a Fellblade and just stick it out in the middle of nothing just to be annoying. You're not going to pay the points for it, but the point being is that you can do stuff like this. You just have the ability to fly everything around the board. So that is really exciting. I really, really like those 2 aspects of it. And then just the other bits and pieces, just getting +1 invulnerable save here, or easy ways to get another +1 to cast. Just the kind of little things like that just take the power level 1 step up. So I definitely see the souped detachment becoming a necessity. I'm really debating whether it swaps out on my Wordbearers detachment at the moment as being the premier go-to psychic unit. It probably is. But also, if you're a pure Thousand Suns player, they have always been good. They got to a period where they were really strong just about the time that we got this massive codex creep. So when people started figuring them out, all of a sudden you get hit by, I don't know, the Marine meta, and just before that as well, with some of the stuff that was coming out. And they kind of they were there, but they weren't quite there. But I think this brings them up. You can definitely play your Thousand Suns Suns, you can play 100% pure army. You know, 3 detachments, each of them being a different cult that you're using for a different reason, and you can compete. I do not deny that. So lovely little ad. Thank you very much, Games Workshop. Very interested to see what the other guys say about Grey Knights and Dark Angels. So please check those out. I know I'm pretty excited about that, and we'll see you on the tabletop. Bye, guys.